Hi, my name is Joseph, and we are going to work today to assemble our bee-box hive. First of all, I want to thank you for helping to protect the world's biodiversity with us and being part of our community of bee-box owners. We sent you 3 boxes, and we're going to start out by going through some of the contents of them. So let's begin with box 1. Inside of box 1, you're going to find the 2 side walls, the back piece, and the front piece to assemble the chimney. Then we have these rails that you're going to use to hold the antiviral bottom for the hive. We have 4 identical legs that you see here, and these 2 with this cutout at the top. There are these 2 parts that will go into the final part of the hive, and this is also going to be used, these 3 pieces are going to be used to assemble the frame at the bottom, and then we have these other pieces that are going to go into the frame of the hive, the structure of the system overall. Now let's talk about box 3. In box 3, you're going to find all of the screws that you need, and these are divided according to the sheet that you're going to find in the box. Those bags are, there are 5 bags, and they're divided as follows. Bag 1 is going to have 59 screws in it. Bag 2 is going to have 20. Bag 3 is going to have 7. Bag 4 is going to have 2, and bag 5 is going to have 22. Make sure that all of the screws are there and all the pieces are present before starting to assemble the hive. In this box, you also have the wooden pegs, 12 of them, that you're going to use in order to assemble the hive. You also have these 6 metal clips, and these which will be used as handles for part of the system. You also have 2 pieces of bee escape systems and this 4-sided disc. Now let's talk about the structure. We're going to go through the pieces that you talked about at the beginning of the video. Let's go and get one of these bars with these holes that you see, and one of the legs with the slot at the top, and you want to put that over the outermost hole. Then take these 2 other normal legs, as shown, and put them both lined up with the other holes. And you want to make sure that the slots point toward the bar and that cutout is at the top, as you see here. To assemble the supporting structure of the hive, we're going to use mainly screws from bag 5. Take 3 of those and screw them in. And you're going to need a heavy screwdriver tip to do this. Please make sure that the tip of the screw goes into the hole as you are seeing here. That way you can make sure that everything lines up properly. And we have 1. And we have 2. And we have 3. That being done, we're going to turn the structure over, and we're going to go and get the other bar with the 3 holes. Now you're going to take the other piece with that cutout at the top, and go through the same procedure as before, making sure that the two sides are mirrors of each other so that when put together, all the slots line up properly. We're going to take the other two bars, put them on top of those holes as shown here, right? Making sure that they line up as on the other side. Take another 3 screws from bag 5 and screw them in again, making sure that you line up that pre-drilled hole as before. Once you've assembled these two structures, you can set them aside. In order to check if you have put them together properly, you can take the slots of the front legs, as you see here, and make sure that they've lined up across from each other like this. As I said, they should be mirrors of each other. Now let's take a look at box 2. In box 2, you're going to find all of the plywood pieces and the transparent polycarbonate parts for the walls of the hive and the floors of the hive. At this point, we are going to set aside most of the pieces, all of the smaller pieces, and there should be those 2 metal panels and the mesh screen. Right now, what we need are the 2 largest pieces. We need this square piece that is going to be the roof of the super lid once we have that installed, and the longer rectangular piece here that has the same length as our hive. This long piece should have 3 holes positioned on the side with the countersink, and you want to make sure that you position it with the countersink upward, and rather than having that point downward. For the assembly of this part, we're going to need 6 screws from bag number 2. Take 3 screws and the 2 structures that we have created, and you're going to set it up like so. Making sure everything is very well aligned, you're going to screw those in. 1. Make sure it's well aligned. 1. And 2. And 3. Now take 3 more screws, again from bag 2, and make sure that you repeat the process on the other side. Now, we are going to take these 2 bars that should be mirrors of each other, and they'll have these 4 holes at the end. We're going to take these 4 holes And we're going to place the wooden pegs that we pulled out before. 1, 2, 3, and 4. In box 2, we now need to look for the component which is the bottom of the chimney assembly. It's going to be rectangular, and it will look different from the others because it has these 4 holes on the sides. You'll want to position that chimney bottom between the 2 rails like you're seeing here, and make sure that it's well locked in place. Now let's take this structure and place it between the cutouts, making sure that we don't shift around the legs too much as we do so. It's kind of a delicate process. 1, 2, 4. You want to make sure all of those, everything is lined up well, all of the holes are lined up, and so on. We're going to need 2 pieces for the next part. This one and the other, which is going to have small cuts in the other side of it. This one goes in the front, and you see we have the other one already in place in the back. So the one without the cuts goes in the front next to this panel, and the other goes in the back here. And you'll see these are the 4 holes where we are going to mount things. You're going to need 4 screws from bag number 5. 2 for the front and 2 for the rear. Here we go into the rear. Make sure that the structure is very well lined up. You can see those special cuts that we need to have in the rear hole right there, rear side right there. 1, 2. And 3 and 4. Now we are going to look for a piece, and this is the only piece that has this specific channel in it. This is where the frames of the nest will rest, and it should be placed like so in the back. These 2 components, which are mirrors of each other, have pre-drilled holes with countersinks, and they line up on top of the frame where we built it so far. There's the countersink, and you want to make sure that that countersink is pointed upward with this piece lined up as such. And each of those holes should be directly above one of the legs. Now, we do the same with the other. You're now going to need 2 more screws from bag number 5. You're going to position them into the pre-drilled hole on both sides, making sure that everything is lined up. So that should pass all the way through those 2 on the frame and then down into the leg like that. And screw them in. Now let's take these 2 identical components, which are going to be placed on the right and left side. And this rectangular component, which has 2 pre-drilled holes on the side and nothing else. That one just has those 2 pre-drilled holes on the end. Now we are going to take 2 screws from bag number 4. The screws, make sure, should go over the lower hole. screw them in on both sides, and I repeat, please put them into the lower hole, not the upper one. So, that's one. And two. Again, into the lower hole. To assemble this component, we're going to need 2 screws from bag number 5. Now we're going to line this bar up with the upper hole. We're going to put in the hole, the screw, and make sure that everything is in place, and then tighten everything down. This is where we are right now. Now, let's take the last component, which should be 3.5 centimeters by 3.5 centimeters, which has these 2 pre-drilled countersunk holes on one side and the other, and this small hole on the side. To assemble it, you're going to need 2 more screws from bag number 5. It's important that this pre-drilled hole is positioned on the right side, facing outward. Let's put this down on top of the structure, again with those countersunk holes pointed up. And screw it. Now let's take these 2 strips that will be positioned on the bottom part in order to have a rack where you can slide in the anti-varroa drawer for the bottom. You'll need 4 screws from bag 3 for this. Put those into the holes and line them up with the holes on the inside of the rack, as you see here, and the inside of the frame, as you see here. And repeat the same process. Now let's take a look into box number 3. Here, we're going to have plastic honeycombs, the transparent plastic components, and 2 pieces of wood. We need the longer wooden piece with 2 pre-drilled holes for this assembly. We'll also need 2 screws from bag 3. Place the screws into the pre-drilled holes, as shown. And this will slot here into the back. One and 2. The last screw from bag 3 is going to be positioned in that pre-drilled hole that we talked about before. Don't tighten it down completely, because eventually we're going to use that to attach to the chimney, which we are going to be putting up in the next section. In box 2, you'll find various pieces that you see here, and we'll go through all of them step by step. let's start with the lower part of the chimney. To assemble the lower part of the chimney, we're going to need this piece that has this hole, and these two pieces with the pre-drilled holes that you see here. We're going to need 4 screws from bag 1. The board with the pre-drilled hole, and that you see that drilled hole directly above the large hole, that needs to go facing the outside with the side here. Put the screws into the pre-drilled holes and screw them down, making sure that the structure is perfectly perpendicular as you see here. Now we can slide that over to the other side and take the other piece. We're going to go through the same process that we did before, making sure that the parts are all in contact with the wooden strips. As you see here at the bottom, it should all be flush. Now, let's place that back over on the left side. And we're going to take this 4-position disc that you see here and one of the screws from bag 1. We're going to place this on the outside of the hive, and you need to make sure that that little bevel that creates a handle is facing to the outside as well, so that it doesn't interfere with the rotation. Now you're going to screw this in place, and the disc should spin more or less as shown. Make sure you don't tighten it too much. Let's move on to the outer wall. Now we're going to discuss this piece from the box, which is the outer wall, the entrance wall. For the front, we're going to need this piece with the slot cut into it, you see here. It is going to be positioned inside of the hive with the exit to the left so that it lines up with the base of the chimney that we just put together. Position it as such. And make sure that the holes line up with those holes in the top bar that you see here. To fix it in place, we're going to need the last 6 screws from bag number 5. Before screwing them in place, we're going to need to check that everything is well lined up. Place the 2 screws at the top, 1 and 2, and screw them down. The other screws go into the side. With the pre-drilled holes on them. And once you've positioned everything and made sure that all of the holes line up and everything is in place, you can set those down and then begin to screw. It's recommended that you put the screw in initially and then lock it down, because that way you avoid anything shifting as you work. Now let's take a look at one of the most important parts of the hive, the transparent panels. From box 2, we're going to take the transparent walls. There should be 3 of them. And we can remove the transparent film. You're going to need 12 screws from bag number 1. Put the screws in the smaller panel to start out, and this is going to go in the back. And then you can start to screw them in, making sure to do it in a careful way so that you're not splitting any of the wood or damaging the plastic. Once it's in place, you can lock it down with the screws. The left side must be in contact with the front wall. So you want to make sure that everything, all of those side panels, as they're putting them in place, are in line and flush with the frame around them, so that there's no big gaps. That way you make sure that the house is safe and secure. You see here, this is using those panels to make sure that there's no gaps anywhere in the whole frame. Now let's move on to the net component. From box 2, we're going to take the net and place it carefully in the bottom of the hive. Try to make sure that you do not damage the transparent walls as you do so. Just like so. Just being very careful not to scratch those walls. Make sure it's placed properly. And then take 2 screws per side, so 8 screws total, from the box and fasten it down in place. And you see all of that is in place. And now that all of those screws are locked in, we can take the remaining wooden pegs and put them into the remaining holes using a hammer delicately to put them in place. You may use a wooden mallet. We have a small hammer here. Make sure those are well in place, all of those. Now we're going to go back to box number 2, and we're going to take out the drawer or tray that we're going to use to monitor Varroa from box number 2. And we're going to place it under the net, sitting on top of those rails that we had put in place earlier. Now we're going to take this piece, and we're going to make sure that we're going to make sure that it's placed on top, and everything is lined up. Those peg holes line up nicely, and everything is all set in place. Now we have the 2 bee escape systems. We're going to put those in place there. Also in box number 2, we're going to find these 2 metal pieces, which we're going to use to open and close that area. And we're going to take those small blocks from the box, and we're going to lock the metal pieces onto those frames with 2 screws each from box number 1. Now these places can be put in place like this, with the handle pointed upward so that they can be easily pulled in and out of the hive. Now we're going to look at the super cover. For the super cover, you're going to need these 2 sidewalls with that shape and this component with 4 pre-drilled holes and that littler one there. You're going to need the 12 screws from bag number 2. And you're going to take the side components lined up so that the higher part is pointed toward the entrance. Now you're going to take the smaller of the pieces and you're going to place it like so. Place the screws into the pre-drilled holes and put it together carefully. You want to make sure that you're careful with this so that you're not splitting any of the plywood or damaging your hive. Do the same on the right side. To make it easier to put everything together, I'm going to turn this all around and put the front piece onto the frame like so. You're going to take more screws, place them in the pre-drilled holes, and screw them down, making sure to do so carefully again so that you're not splitting the wood. Now, we're going to put everything back into place, facing the chimney with those pegs lined up. And you want to make sure that the cover of the super is lined up carefully so that those drill holes line up on either side. Yep. And again, you're going to want to make sure that you do that in a careful way. Now we're going to talk about one of the other really important features of the bee box, which is the chimney. These are the remaining pieces of the chimney, the upper part. Right now, you're going to take the front wall and one of the side pieces. You're going to need screws from bag 1. You need to position the front part with that long window toward the bottom. And you're going to need to take the side panel with the shorter piece toward the front as well. You want to make sure you leave just enough space for that. You want to have the screws to the outside, and this should go on the left side to start off with. And you want to make sure that it's all lined up like this. And you're going to want to make sure that you tighten those screws starting from the top and then working your way down. And you want to make sure that you do things delicately as you go. Once you have the screws in place, you can then move it around so that you can work more easily, so that you're not trying to reach way up as you're screwing everything down in place. Once those screws are in place, you can take the other side of the chimney and making sure that the angled part is at the top and the shorter piece is facing toward the front. Screw that in place. Then you can take the rear part of the chimney and put that in place as well, making sure that the bottom is very well aligned as you see here. You may find it easier to work if you have it pointed down. And this should be what you see when you finish. You're going to use more screws from bag number 1 and put them in this pre-drilled holes and screw them down. Make sure that everything is well aligned as you work. Then you're going to take the last wooden piece, and with the 2 screws from bag number 2, and you're going to do it as such, kind of giving a little lip at the top of the chimney. The last piece is going to be the roof of the chimney. You're going to need 4 screws from bag number 1. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to fix it on the top of the chimney as such. So you'll see you'll line up those 2 holes toward the back, or the upward side, I guess you could also say, and then lock that down like so, making sure those countersinks are on the upward side. Now the chimney can be inserted into the chimney, into the structure, like you see here. You can put that 1 screw back down right here. Make sure to line that up with the pre-drilled hole in the chimney. Now we have one of the key parts of the bee box, the chimney, which ensures that there's a peaceful coexistence between people and bees. Now we're going to assemble the last part of the lower end of the bee box, which are the sidewall clips. Take the metal clips and the remaining screws from bag 1 and find the pre-drilled holes on the sides of the system. So we're going to start from here, 1 and 2, right? So you'll have 2 on this side. And you want to put the screw through that metal clip and screw it down without screwing too much because you want to have those clips able to move. Now we're going to put the other one in place on this side, always making sure that the screws are not too tight. And then we're going to repeat the process on the remaining sides. And screw them down, making sure that you're not locking it too much in place. And let's put on the last two. And we do basically the same thing here. And we'll have the last two screws and the last two clips to put everything in place. Now, we're going to take these side panels, and when you need to close the hive up, you're going to slide that up that way and flip those clips up to lock them in place. And now the hive is all put together. Now we put the cover back on top and our hive is assembled. Good work. Now let's complete the inside part of the upper structure. Once you've inserted the bees inside the swarm, you can use those metal plates to close it up and position the honeycombs as such. Inside the honeycombs, you're going to be able to insert a wax sheet that will facilitate the construction of the bees. And later, you'll be able to remove the comb and collect the honey without interrupting the activity of the hive. The last two pieces of the box are these clear covers for the collection areas. You'll need to remove that plastic film, as he's doing now. And then once that's done, you can place them like this, and there you go. Your hive is complete. Congratulations. Welcome to the world of beekeeping. This is how the lever works, and you're ready to go.